This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network. Presented by Hearthside Bank.
Can Arsenal win the EPL in the next 2 years? We tell you next. It's the Premier League in 20 minutes. Welcome into Sports Source Premier. I am Will West. That's Chris Carroll, and we do this every single week, Chris. EPL in 20 minutes, let's get started.
Yep.
Roy Keane says Arsenal, there is no evidence that they could win the Premier League this year or next year. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts on that? Do you believe Arsenal can win the Premier League in the next 2 seasons?
Well, I think you've got to look at it the other way, perhaps, and say who can win. If it's not going to be Arsenal, then who's it going to be? Will it be Liverpool again, because they're going to tie it up this year? And why not? If it's not Liverpool next year, who else is it going to be? And I think Arsenal's got as much chance as anybody else, quite frankly. If they can sort the forward line out, and they have had a bad run of injuries, and they've not helped themselves by buying the number 9 that everybody says they're craving for. So they could, if they get themselves together up top, they could, yeah.
Hey, look, I agree with you. I think Arsenal could absolutely win the Premier League next year. And I get what he's saying. There's no evidence, but the other side of it is City looks like a rebuild's coming. Liverpool looks like there's a rebuild coming. Chelsea, who knows under that ownership what's going to happen there? Do you really buy Forest winning the entire thing or Bournemouth winning the entire thing? Brighton, no. Spurs and United, that's science fiction, the idea that they could be at the top that quickly. But Jamie Carragher said something last week as well, where Arsenal's issue isn't the number 9, it's that they don't have enough creative players. I would argue they have creative players. Yeah. They're just all hurt right now. Yeah. Kai Havertz, Saka, Jesus, they're all hurt right now. So you have creative players, but you need that number 9, in my opinion. 1, you need to get healthy. 2, you need a number 9. I know they moved Havertz up to that forward position, that striker position. I like him a lot better as an attacking midfielder than I do as a number 9. So, and they let a lot of guys, even Arteta has said they didn't bring in the guys that I asked them to bring in.
Right.
They've let a lot of number 9s move around the league that are all having success, and they didn't bring them into Arsenal. I think they need that. I'd hope they're not trying to go with Havertz at that number 9 position for a long time, for long term. I just don't think that's going to work out for them. And then try to bring in another attacking midfielder. Put Havertz there at the attacking midfielder. You get Saka back. You get Jesus back, which I don't love him for 90 minutes, but I think he's a good 60-minute player or 60-minute sub. Either way you want to use him. And I think that Arsenal has plenty in the tank. Yeah, I do. With Rice, with Odegaard, with as good as they've been even all season and back. I think they're definitely good enough to win the Premier League next year.
I do, and like I said before, if it's not them, who else? They've got as good a chance as anybody else. Liverpool, who knows what's going to happen with Liverpool next year? They've got these 3 big contracts up in the air at the moment. If they take Salah away from Liverpool, then they're not the same team. So when you're looking at Arsenal, Chelsea, the others, if they sort that, get their players back healthy, Odegaard, they've got Trossard who's chipping in with goals, Rice chipping in, they've got goals already, they've got a lot of goals in the team. If they had a Haaland, if they had a Haaland-like player, a number 9,
I'll even take an Amazon knockoff of Haaland, right? It doesn't have to be anyone
absolutely, just a guy who's going to put himself about up top there.
Give him a different someone option. Like that, if there was
exactly,
in that
exactly, yeah. So. And then, in which case, I think that would be the icing on the cake for them. I think they'd have a great team.
I do think Arsenal faces a lot of criticism because they're just kind of boring. And they're going about their business in a somewhat boring way. They occasionally make the big splash. They brought in Odegaard. Then you brought in Rice. But they don't ever seem to answer everything at the top. And they've tried everything that they can. They thought Nketiah was going to be the guy that would fill that role. He hasn't been. So they've tried different things at that number 9 position, but they don't seem to react too much. They just kind of slowly do their build. Yeah. And I also think they just kind of are boring and win. And good for them with that. I look, as a Spurs fan, where everything's compelling but a train wreck, I would love to have that.
And they've lost Saka, of course, and that creativity and the pace and what made them look exciting. He's a huge loss up there, So you get him back. And they're a different team. And considering they've had such a bad season, they're still second. They're not doing too badly considering what they've been up against.
All right, let's talk about City, because you mentioned City. Can they win the Premier League next year? I mentioned is it time for a rebuild. So let's answer that question. Yeah. Look at City's roster right now. De Bruyne 33, Gundogan 34, Grealish 29, Ederson 31, Stones, Ake, Kovacic, Silva, all north of 30. Is it time for City to jettison some of these older players and do a full-on rebuild?
Yeah, I think it is. I think he's got to, and it's either he either didn't see it coming, or he saw it coming and just went with it anyway and rode the wave for as long as he could. But they're either exhausted because he's an intense guy, or the players are gone, you know what, we've been at this for 3-4 years now. We can't do this. We've won everything, and what else is there to win? And maybe human nature's kicking in where you're 30 plus players and your Grealish is 29 going 30, maybe they're gone, you know what, we're exhausted, won it all. And you can capture lightning in the bottle for so long. And it's just time for that. It's time for a rebuild now. It really is, because it looks like they've come to the end of the road.
I agree. I think it's probably time to move on from these guys. I do think maybe there's not the same hunger that there was in years past for some of these aging stars. I think you also have Haaland, you have Foden, you have Rodri that you could start the rebuild around. Yeah, that's pretty good. You got to feel good to build around those three players. The tough part is I still think there's value with some of these guys, and I do wonder, is Pep kind of started this whole, we're going to try to win every single cup there humanly is out there, instead of sitting players playing the young guys. We're going to try to win the treble, the quadruple. We're going to try, and then now we see other teams trying to match that. They're all exhausted. I agree with that. They're probably exhausted. Also, you probably could push these guys at 28 in a way that you can't push them at 30, 31.
Motivation's different now.
Yeah, well, I think the body recovers differently too once there's so many miles on the body. And so if you look at longer Champions League right now, they're trying to win, the League Cup. They're trying to win FA Cup, or at least made an effort to. The tough part is this. Those are some huge names. 8 huge names that I just mentioned. Right. You're not going to get full value for those guys for what they can probably bring in the process of your rebuild. You're not going to rebuild those guys with the equivalent players. So that's going to be the tough part. And I do wonder this. Would Pep Guardiola want to go through a 2 or 3 year rebuild? Or would he walk away and say...
It's an interesting one, yeah.
Yeah. Well, say, no, I'll let somebody else do it.
That's an interesting, because it will be a big rebuild, because you say the big names have gone. The guys who replaced them, they're not such big names.
Yeah.
And you look to see they're trying to play the way they used to play, and it looks a sorry version of the way they used to play, quite honestly. It really looks like they're struggling. So, I'm not sure whether he's going to go for it or not. It'd be interesting to see if Pep's still got it in him as well, because, like I said, the players might have lost motivation. Maybe he has as well. Maybe he's gone for as long as he could.
Look, at the same time, I've also been predicting Pep will look for a new challenge at some point in time for 3 years, and eventually a broken clock's right twice a day, right?
Yeah,
I just wonder, a guy who is one like that with so many opportunities, there's nothing left to prove there at City. Does he go to PSG? Does he go somewhere else where he can prove himself, or just take some time away?
Yeah.
I don't know how Pep's necessarily built for this, if he's built for the challenge of a rebuild. Let's promotion and relegation, our buy and sell segment here that we do every single week on Sports Source Premier. What we do is one thing in the league that we're going to promote or buy, one thing in the league we're going to relegate or sell. Who are you promoting? What are you promoting this week, Chris?
I'm promoting Nottingham Forest for their win against Man City last weekend. Forest, people have been questioning Forest, can they keep going? They've had a bit of a wobble in their terms, but that was a great win. And what they've done, what Forest have done, from finishing 17th last season to being, third right now?
Yep.
Third, pushing for Champions League. What preparation that is for Champions League. So as a Wolves fan, and Wolves are sitting 17th right now, Wolves' preparation for the Champions League is going fantastically well, because they're doing exactly what Forest is doing. So, seriously, Forest, what they've done from 17th, one place off being relegated last year, challenging for Champions League and going well, I think it's unbelievable.
23 of the last 26 seasons, they have not been at the top flight of English football. And now they have they're in the driver's seat for a place for Europe, which I think is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I'll go with the Arsenal. And again, as a Spurs fan, it pains me to say 2 nice things about Arsenal in the same show. But I love bringing in Berta as the new sporting director. I thought what he did at Atletico was fantastic. And there was a level of consistency in what he was able to bring to Atletico that, since we've had access to La Liga in the United States, had just never been there before he got there. I love the consistency he brought there. I think that he'll bring consistency A lot of people think Acuna, your guy, is maybe the first player he goes after, and then he goes after a dyed-in-the-wool number 9.
A little more depth.
Yeah. So looking for depth, looking for more scoring opportunities. I love what Berta brings to the table, so I'll promote Arsenal, even though it does maybe want to throw up in my mouth a little bit. Who or what are you relegating this week, Chris?
Well, I can't believe I'm doing this, and far be it from me to tell Pep Guardiola how to coach, but it's because of Haaland, and I watched that game against Forest the other day. You've got a goal-scoring machine like Haaland, and I just don't think that he's getting, and again, far be it from with Pep's, I can't believe I'm saying this, but with what Pep's won. But you got a monster like Haaland, and the build-up is so slow. Everybody's playing in the penalty area or around the edge of the attacking penalty area. Haaland's just making little runs, waiting for 5-yard, 10-yard passes that never come. He must be getting so frustrated, and you're just not playing to his strengths. So I think if City could get the ball forward earlier to Haaland, where he's got a little bit of space, that's where he can hit defenders down, beat defenders and do some damage. But right now, Haaland looks lost up there because he's so pedestrian getting up there that you'd think, my opinion, Pep would tweak it a little bit and say, guys, let's get this ball earlier.
Well, play to the strengths of the players you have, but it's tough when you've had that level of success doing one thing, right?
He's got away with it with the fantastic players he's had around him. They've been able to play that way, and Haaland's just been on the end of things because everyone else around him has been capable as well.
De Bruyne on one side, Grealish on the other side, right?
That's right, yeah. And Silva and Gundogan in the heyday, and now they haven't got those. He hasn't got those players around him, so now he's never getting the ball, and when he does get it, it's too late.
Okay, look, I'll relegate. I'm going to go with Manchester United. The announcement came this morning as we're taping this that Old Trafford will close, a new 100,000 person seat stadium to be open that they're likening to the Eiffel Tower. We're also seeing the possibility of Newcastle with a £3 billion stadium complex that they're looking to possibly build. Wow. I hate to see these massive new stadiums at the expense of history. Yeah. One thing that's so great about the English Premier League is they are clubs, not franchises. One thing that's great is that the history still matters. The fans are honored, the supporters are honored, the history is honored. And it seems like we're getting further and further away from that, and this is just another step in the wrong direction, in my opinion. Yeah. Although I get it. It has to be tough if you're those owners and you're looking at Spurs' new stadium and you're thinking, you're having Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar play concerts there. The NFL's playing games there. Otherwise, that's the only stadium outside of Wembley they go to. We would like portions of that money at some point, too. Yeah. And I also think if you need to upgrade, like there are a lot of venerable old stadiums in the United States that are just dumps. They are. I mean, they're just awful. And the Premier League season's so long, it can be very difficult, I think, to do the type of proper upgrades that you would want to St. James Park, to Old Trafford. So I understand the challenges they're facing, but it seems like they kind of just don't care here. We're just going to make something new and shiny, and that troubles me a little bit.
It does me as well, because I'm a traditionalist, and I love the history in Highbury of Arsenal and White Hart Lane, Spurs, Upton Park, West Ham. The atmosphere is not the same now. It's just not the same. Those old grounds, they were compact. They're held enough. Again, not enough for the owners. And perhaps you could build on what's already there, or it's nice if you can develop the site, at least develop on the site. It might not look the same, develop on the site of where the ground's always been. Wolves, for example, a famous old ground called Molineux. It's where it was. It's where I went and saw the first game when I was 8 years old. Now the stands look different, but it's still on the same place. You still walk up the same roads, you go to the same pubs. Not when I was 8, but you go to the same pubs. And, I was 10, I think. But no, it's the same vibe. Now the vibe's just different. It's on the edge of town now, and it's completely different.
Yeah, no, it's sanitized. That's the issue, that everything has become sanitized. And I would also say this for United fans, for Newcastle fans, buyer beware on that, because it sounds great to have the new shiny new stadium. I watched Spurs go through 2 transfer windows they couldn't spend money, because under financial fair play, spending that money to build that stadium meant they were broke. Yeah. We watched Leicester City have to go down because they did upgrades to King Park Stadium and they didn't have money for players. So that's a concern. If you're United and we're on this 2028 building plan, you build that stadium, it is going to hurt you if you actually stay with financial fair play.
And they say they're broke now.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they're pulling that one off.
All right, let's go to let's talk about teams like, maybe not so much United and Spurs, but let's look at teams like Newcastle. Saw a piece at ESPN.com speculating that maybe some of the top teams in the EPL, they're just exhausted with the expanded calendars that we're seeing right now. And then so I go through and I start looking at the numbers. Chelsea, Forest, City, lost 2 of 3. Bournemouth, Newcastle have lost 3 of 4. And Bournemouth was the hottest team in European football for a month and a half. And then, man, the bottom has fallen out of that. Newcastle, again, it just seems like Newcastle's so close to making sure that they stay in Europe. And they just keep losing matches. Now, upside for them, these other clubs do too. Do you think that with this expanded schedule, so many injuries that we're seeing right now, especially hamstring injuries, are we just seeing clubs be exhausted right now?
I don't think so. I like to look at it the other way. I think the level of all clubs is rising. So, in other words, the gap between the top, the best, and the rest is closing, especially this season anyway. So your Bournemouths, Chelsea's, they're all beating each other.
Yeah.
No one's putting Villa. You could go from, other than Liverpool, you can go from 2 to 9. And I think ninth at the moment is Bournemouth. And they can all beat each other, but they're playing some great stuff. Brighton are playing some really good stuff. Bournemouth are playing some fantastic stuff. Villa on their day are good. They're all playing really good soccer. And I think there's some good games going on. And it's not lack of quality, I don't think. I think that most of those 9 probably aren't playing European soccer now and they're having inflated schedules. And if they are, like your Chelsea's, they've got 2 squads they can pick from, So, no, I don't buy the heavy schedule. I think the level of play is risen, and there's more teams that are playing that well.
I know, I agree, and I think one portion of that is something we talked about a few weeks ago. I think that you have some of the bigger clubs have said, look at Arsenal's success, we're going to go bring on a bunch of young guys, and we're going to just play these 19 and 20-year-olds, and then so you see the Forests, the Brightons, the Bournemouths, the Fulhams that are just said, well, I'll go get a 27-year-old guy that's played in the EPL for the last 7 years. We'll put a team of those together, and what that means is they can beat especially once you deal with a couple of hamstring injuries for Chelsea, a couple of hamstring injuries for Arsenal. You're right. They can really through the top 12 or 13. Nothing would surprise you week in, week out at this point.
No, hard to find an upset. No.
All right. Final point that we get to our target man, upset pick of the week, and then our survivor pick. Let's start with target man, Chris. One player you're targeting to have a big match week this week.
All right. I'm going to give a shout out here to Raul Jimenez of Fulham. Now, I know he's playing against your guys, so I'm not saying Fulham are going to beat Spurs, but Jimenez has come back from a horrendous injury that he sustained when he was playing. He had a fractured skull. It was more like an assault, rather than a 50-50 challenge for a header. And it was life-threatening, let alone career-threatening. And he's come back. I wish he was still at Wolves scoring goals. He's got 10 this season in all competitions for Fulham. And he's just on a bit of a roll. And it's really good to see. He was a popular player at Wolves on the field. He was popular as a person. Everyone liked the guy as well. So, yeah, I'm going to give him a shout out and looking for him to add to his 10 goals this season.
I'll go with Beto for Everton against West Ham this week. He 4 straight matches with a goal, 2 straight matches without one. And I think that we're going to see him break through this week against West Ham. West Ham, West Ham has their moments, but it never seems like they can stick with any consistency when they have their moments. It's like they get up to the top half of the table, and then that's not good enough for them, and they don't want to have the slow build or, well, we should be better than this. And so they'll fire whoever they have and then move players along, and then it doesn't work out, and then you find them just north of relegation territory, it seems like, year in, year out.
Yeah, they're one of those teams that broke through. They won the European championship, one of the European trophies. And then you get cherry-picked. You can't build on what you've got because of financial fair play, so their hands are tied like a lot of the clubs. A lot of those teams have their 1 year in Europe and then they're back down in with a pack again.
Your upset pick of the week.
Upset. Tough to get an upset this week, but I've gone with Brighton away at Man City. I've been at Man City heavy this show. But Brighton, since their 7-0 thumping against Forest, they've gone 6 games, 6 wins on the bounce, in all competitions. So they're on a bit of a roll. I think Man City's confidence is low. I got Brighton beating City away.
Yeah, very difficult to find one this week. You're right. I went with Brentford against Bournemouth. Part of it is I think Brentford's due as well as they played, but they can't seem to get the type of finish that they want, but the result they need. But I like Brentford. I like the way they're playing. I wonder right now, has Bournemouth lost their legs? And are they just, after being so hot for so long, are they starting to fall apart? Your survivor pick. And if you don't know how we do survivor, what we've done here is it's a goal differential survivor league. Each week, Chris and I will pick one team in the EPL playing that week. You can only pick that team one time per season. Once you do, then you can't pick them again, and we go by goal differential to see who wins. Our goal differential right now, through 2 weeks, we're tied at +1. So I have taken Arsenal and Liverpool so far. I took the big guns. Last week, your pick was?
It was Chelsea last week.
Yeah.
The week before was Everton.
Yeah, so you've done a good job saving the big teams for the time you might need them.
Yeah, but nobody's hammering anybody at the moment, are they? It's tough. There's lots of close games, and games that you expect, like Chelsea putting a few against Leicester last week, didn't happen. It was just 1-0, so you never know. So
who's your pick this week?
All right, this week, well, I'm kind of switched it around. I'm hoping Bournemouth got goals in them with a number of players through the team. And so I'm going with Bournemouth against Brentford.
Yeah, I'll take Forest against Ipswich. And again, this is just me playing it incredibly, you know what I mean? Like incredibly fearful in my prediction, but I know that's going to happen. So right now, we'll just play it safe and see how that goes. If you agree or disagree with anything that we're talking about, like, subscribe. Let us know in the comments if there's anything you said that you didn't like or that you did. Thank you for watching Sports Source Premiere.